The massive space station orbited silently in the void between three war-torn star systems. Inside its gleaming halls, representatives from the galaxy's most powerful civilizations gathered for what many hoped would be the end of a 100-year war. Ambassador Lee Miho straightened his dark blue uniform as he walked through the corridors of Kepler Station. His aide, Kim Yuna, followed closely behind, carrying diplomatic files that contained months of preparation. They had traveled farther from Earth than any human had ever gone before, invited to mediate between alien species that had been killing each other since before humanity had learned to build rockets. The main conference room was enormous, with a circular table that could seat hundreds. 3 distinct groups occupied different sections, each eyeing the others with barely concealed hatred. The Veil Confederation delegates looked like ghosts made of starlight. Their bodies seemed to fade in and out of visibility, and when they spoke, their voices echoed with strange harmonics that made human ears ring. They claimed to be beings of pure energy who had transcended physical form eons ago. Across from them sat the Corvin Empire's representatives, massive humanoid creatures covered in natural armor plating. General Thakmore stood nearly 3 meters tall, his forearms crossed over a chest decorated with battle scars. Every Corvin warrior wore weapons even during peace talks, considering it dishonorable to appear defenseless. The third group was perhaps the strangest of all. The Nexus Collective appeared as identical metallic beings, but Lee Mio knew they were actually biological creatures whose minds had been linked to a vast computer network. When one spoke, they all spoke in perfect unison, their words calculated by algorithms that process millions of variables per second. The human delegation appreciates this opportunity. Lee Mio began formally, activating his translator device. "We hope to find common ground between your peoples." General Thakmore snorted, a sound like grinding metal. "Humans are children playing at diplomacy. What can you possibly understand about conflicts that began before your species discovered fire?" The Veil representative, Speaker Limthara, flickered with annoyance. "The Corvins speak of honor while their fleets burn innocent worlds. There could be no harmony while such violence exists. Violence is merely the application of force to achieve statistical outcomes," the Nexus delegates replied in their eerie chorus. "Our calculations show a 73.6% probability that this conference will fail." Kim Yuna leaned forward from her position behind Lee Miho. "Perhaps we could start with smaller issues. Trade disputes, prisoner exchanges, establishing neutral zones for medical aid." For 3 weeks, the talks continued. Lee Miho found himself genuinely hopeful as small compromises were reached. The Veil agreed to stop their psychic attacks on Corvin battleships. The Corvins promised to honor medical vessels bearing Nexus markings. The Nexus calculated new supply routes that avoided contested systems. Dr. Choi Daeho, the expedition xenobiologist, spent hours studying alien behavior patterns. His colleague, translator Kong Nari, worked tirelessly to overcome language barriers that went deeper than simple vocabulary differences. How do you explain the concept of mercy to a species that sees everything as mathematical equations? How do you discuss honor with beings that exist partially outside normal space? The breakthrough came during the 4th week. Lee Mio had proposed a radical solution, rotating control of disputed territories on 10-year cycles, with neutral human observers ensuring fair treatment of all populations. The aliens were actually considering it. "This could work," Speaker Limthara admitted, her form brightening with hope. The cosmic flow would have time to heal between transitions. General Thakmore slammed one of his massive fists on the table. "It has merit. All warriors would have chances to prove their worth in honorable combat." Even the Nexus Collective seemed intrigued. Preliminary calculations suggest a 67.4% success probability. This exceeds our minimum threshold for acceptable risk. Lee Miho felt his heart racing with excitement. After a century of war, peace was actually possible. Kim Yuna was already drafting the basic framework agreement. They were going to do it. The explosions began at exactly 14:32 station time. The first blast came from the Corvin section of the station. Emergency alarms shrieked as atmosphere vented into space through a massive hull breach. Then more explosions followed in rapid succession, each one carefully placed to cause maximum chaos and confusion. Lee Miho was thrown to the floor as the conference room shook violently. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red shadows. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see Corvin warships approaching the station with weapons charged. Extremists! General Thakmore roared over the noise. My own people betrayed the talks. But the damage was already done. A section of the station collapsed, crushing Dr. Choi Deho under twisted metal. Translator Kong Nari was caught in an explosive decompression. Her body lost the vacuum of space along with dozens of alien delegates. In the chaos that followed, each faction blamed the others. The Veil accused the Corvins of planning treachery. The Corvins claimed Nexus sabotage. The Nexus calculated that someone had deliberately triggered the violence to destroy the peace process. The talks are over, Speaker Limthra declared, her form flickering with rage. Trust has been poisoned. There could be no peace now. The surviving delegates evacuated in separate shuttles, returning to their fleets with news of failure. Within hours, the war resumed with renewed fury, made worse by the fresh betrayal and bloodshed. Lee Miho stood in the ruined conference room, watching as his colleagues' bodies were prepared for transport home. The galaxy's greatest powers had chosen violence over peace, and everyone expected humanity to retreat to their small corner of space, overwhelmed by forces beyond their understanding. None of them realized they had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. 6 months passed like a held breath across the galaxy. The three great powers resumed their ancient war with fresh hatred, each blaming the others for the failed peace talks. Ships burned in the void between stars while entire worlds mourned their dead. But from human space came only silence. The Corvin Empire's intelligence networks reported strange activity along human borders. Colony ships that had carried families to distant worlds were now returning empty. Mining stations that had operated for decades suddenly went dark. Trade routes that had brought human goods to alien markets simply stopped functioning. The cowards are running home to hide. General Thakmore declared to his war council, as expected from such a weak species. The Veil Confederation's psychic seers sensed disturbances in what they called the cosmic flow. Ripples of activity emanated from human territory, but they dismissed these as aftershocks from the resumed war. Their attention remained focused on more immediate threats from Corvin fleets and Nexus battle groups. The Nexus Collective calculated that humanity had a 97.3% probability of complete withdrawal from galactic affairs. Their vast computer networks processed this data with satisfaction. One variable had been eliminated from their war equations. None of them understood what was really happening. Deep beneath Sol Station, Admiral Yoon Tae-hyun stood before a wall of tactical displays, showing every human world in the galaxy. Red lights indicated colonies that had completed their transformation. Yellow showed worlds still in progress. Green marked positions ready for the next phase. Status report, he commanded. Colonel An Soo-young stepped forward, her uniform crisp despite working 18-hour days for months. The Outer Rim territories have finished conversion. Every mining colony now has military-grade defenses. Every research station has been weaponized. Every trade post has become a fortress. The evacuation had been carefully planned years before, triggered by a simple code phrase broadcast on routine communication channels. Families thought they were being moved to safer worlds due to increased alien activity. They had no idea they were clearing the way for Protocol 7. Dr. Han Jaiwan approached the command table, carrying data tablets filled with months of research. Psychological profiles of all three alien species are complete, she reported. The Corvins are predictable. They value honor above tactical advantage, which we can exploit. The Veil rely too heavily on psychic intimidation. If we can confuse their mental powers, they become helpless. She paused, scrolling through more data. The Nexus are the most dangerous because they think logically, but that's also their weakness. They can't handle true chaos or completely random decisions. General Bei Minjae nodded grimly. Our colonial defense forces have been training for asymmetric warfare. Every farmer knows how to turn a harvesting machine into a weapon. Every miner can collapse tunnels to create kill zones. Every teacher can coordinate resistance cells. Admiral Yoon Tae-hyun studied the displays. Humanity's official fleet consisted of maybe 200 ships, mostly explorers and cargo haulers. The aliens knew about those vessels and had dismissed them as insignificant. What they didn't know was that the real military had been hiding in asteroid belts and dead solar systems for decades, training for this exact scenario. They think we're weak because we prefer peace, he said quietly. They're about to learn that choosing not to fight is very different from being unable to fight. In the Corvan Empire, warriors composed songs about human cowardice. They laughed about the frightened mammals who had fled after their diplomats died. Some young Corvan nobles even suggested claiming human territory, since it appeared to be abandoned. The Veil Seers meditated on the cosmic significance of humanity's withdrawal. They interpreted it as the universe's way of removing a disruptive element from the galactic balance. Their dreams were filled with visions of restored harmony once the chaotic human influence was gone. The Nexus Collective updated their strategic algorithms, removing human variables from most calculations. In their vast databanks, humanity was relegated to a footnote-marked, non-threatening species in voluntary isolation. Meanwhile, human merchant vessels took positions near major hyperspace routes, their cargo holds filled with weapons instead of trade goods. Research stations appeared in previously empty star systems, bristling with sensors and defensive systems that could track movement across entire sectors. Commander Park Jisu oversaw the infiltration phase from her ship disguised as a broken-down freighter. Her crew had spent months placing surveillance devices near alien military bases, mapping patrol routes, and identifying critical infrastructure. Every major alien installation now had human eyes watching it. Intelligence gathering is complete, she reported during a secure communication with Admiral Yoon Tae-hyun. We know their fleet positions, their supply lines, their command structures. They know nothing about ours. The preparation phase was nearly complete. Humanity had spent 6 months transforming from a peaceful civilization into something the galaxy had never seen before. Not because they were naturally violent, but because they were naturally adaptable. They learned from every encounter, adjusted to every challenge, and prepared for every possibility. The alien powers continued their war, confident that the weak humans had been frightened away from galactic politics forever. They had no idea that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or numbers. It was the ability to think in ways that no other species could predict. The quiet time was almost over. Soon, the galaxy would discover what happened when humans stopped trying to make peace and started making war. The Corvan Empire made their fatal mistake on a Tuesday. General Thakmor, drunk on victories against Nexus fleets, decided that humanity's abandoned territories were ripe for conquest. 3 worlds with human research facilities looked like easy targets to boost his warriors' morale after months of bloody stalemate. We will claim these worlds for the Empire, he announced to his war council. The cowardly humans left only skeleton crews behind. Our honor guards will sweep them aside in hours. His fleet of 30 battleships approached the first world, a small planet called Haven, 7 that had hosted a human geological survey team. Long-range sensors showed minimal activity, just a few scattered buildings and what appeared to be abandoned equipment. Perfect for a quick victory. The first sign something was wrong came when the Corvan landing craft touched down. Instead of a research station, they found themselves facing a fortress that seemed to rise from the ground itself. Hidden bunkers opened like metal flowers, revealing weapons that shouldn't exist on a simple survey world. Colonel On Soo-young had spent months turning every human outpost into a nightmare of overlapping defensive positions. What looked like geological equipment from orbit was actually camouflage artillery. The innocent-looking prefab buildings were connected by underground tunnels filled with traps. "Attack with honor!" roared Subcommander Gricktal as his warriors charged toward the human positions. They expected the defenders to meet them in open combat, following the ancient rules of warfare that had governed galactic conflicts for centuries. Instead, they encountered something no Corvan had ever faced before. Humans who fought without honor, without rules, without mercy. The defenders used every dirty trick imaginable. Hidden explosives, psychological warfare broadcasts, and tactics that violated every principle of noble combat. Dr. Han Jaiwan's Psychological Warfare Division had studied Corvan culture for months. They knew that warriors who valued honor above life could be broken by mockery and shame. Human speakers broadcast recordings of laughter mixed with the sounds of Corvan retreat, describing their enemies as cowards who couldn't defeat weak humans. For the first time in their species' history, elite Corvan honor guards abandoned their positions rather than face enemies who openly mocked their sacred traditions. Subcommander Gricktal himself fled the battlefield, his mind shattered by the realization that his lifetime of training meant nothing against opponents who refused to fight fairly. The defeat sent shockwaves through the Corvan Empire. Warriors who had never retreated from any battle were running from humans. The impossible had become reality. The Veil Confederation decided to intervene, as they had done countless times before to pacify galactic conflicts. Seer Velaner, one of their most powerful psychics, reached out with her consciousness to calm the violent human minds. What happened next would haunt her for the rest of her existence. Human thoughts were chaos made manifest. Where other species had ordered, logical mental patterns, humans contained contradictions that shouldn't be possible. They could hold completely opposite ideas simultaneously without mental strain. They made decisions based on emotion while calculating logical outcomes. They planned rationally while acting on pure instinct. Velaner's psychic probe recoiled in absolute terror. The contact lasted only seconds, but it felt like drowning in an ocean of impossibilities. Her translucent form flickered and dimmed as her consciousness struggled to process what she had experienced. "They're minds," she whispered to the other Veil Seers. "They're not like anything that should exist. They think in ways that break the rules of reality itself." Several other Seers who had attempted similar contact suffered complete mental breakdowns. The Veil's greatest weapon, their psychic abilities, was useless against a species whose thoughts operated outside universal logic. The Nexus Collective, watching these defeats with their vast computer networks, decided to demonstrate their computational superiority. They deployed their most advanced battle algorithms against human forces, confident that superior processing power would overcome any tactical disadvantage. Collective Node Prime 7 analyzed terabytes of human combat data, searching for patterns it could predict and counter. The algorithm should have been able to calculate human responses with 99.7% accuracy. Instead, the computers encountered systematic failures. Human commanders made decisions that no logical analysis could predict. Commander Park Jisu demonstrated this perfectly during the Battle of Kepler 9 when she ordered her outnumbered fleet to retreat, then suddenly reverse course and attack from an impossible angle. When asked to explain her tactical reasoning, she simply said, "It felt right. The Nexus algorithms crashed trying to process this explanation. How could feeling right be a valid military strategy?" Their quantum computers overheated, attempting to calculate the probability matrices for decisions based on intuition and emotion. More battles followed across the galaxy. Human forces appeared in systems that should have been empty, using weapons that turned alien technology against itself. A Corvan plasma cannon became a mining tool that carved through enemy armor. A Veil psychic amplifier was rewired to broadcast human thoughts, driving enemy seers insane. Nexus computational nodes were infected with paradoxes that caused cascading system failures. In 3 weeks, humanity didn't just defend their former territories. They launched coordinated attacks against all 3 alien powers simultaneously, using captured technology in ways its creators had never imagined possible. The galaxy watched in growing horror as the species they had dismissed as weak began dismantling civilizations that had dominated space for millennia. Humanity's secret weapon wasn't superior technology or numbers. It was the ability to think completely outside the rules that governed everyone else's reality. The galaxy's worst nightmare was unfolding before their eyes. Humanity, the species everyone had dismissed as weak and insignificant, was systematically destroying 3 advanced civilizations using technology that shouldn't even work. Admiral Yoon Taehyun stood aboard his flagship, watching tactical displays that showed human forces advancing on multiple fronts. His fleet looked like a collection of salvage junk compared to the sleek alien warships they were fighting. Human vessels were cobbled together from mining equipment, cargo haulers, and research platforms. Yet, somehow, they were winning. Report from the Vega sector. Commander Park Jisu announced, "Captain Kim De-hoon has successfully converted a grain transport into a kinetic bombardment platform. Enemy casualties are severe. The aliens couldn't understand how this was possible. A ship designed to carry wheat shouldn't be able to punch through military-grade armor plating. But human engineers had figured out how to turn anything into a weapon. Children's toys became explosives. Farming equipment became siege weapons. Medical supplies became chemical warfare agents. Dr. Han Jaiwan's research teams worked around the clock, studying captured alien technology and finding ways to use it that its creators had never imagined. A Corvin honor blade became a cutting tool for breaching hulls. Veil meditation crystals were rewired to jam psychic communications. Nexus computation cores were programmed with human chaos algorithms that made them more effective than their original design. They weaponized everything, reported a terrified Corvin intelligence officer to General Thakmore. Their garbage collectors become assault vehicles. Their food processors become ammunition factories. They turn our own technology against us in ways that violate the laws of physics. The three alien powers attempted to unite against a human threat, putting aside their century-long war to face this new enemy together. It should have worked. Combined, they had thousands of ships, billions of warriors, and technology that was centuries ahead of human capabilities. But humanity had spent months studying their psychology, finding weaknesses that the aliens didn't even know they had. Captain Kim Yuna led the disinformation campaign against the Corvin Empire. She studied their honor codes and found ways to exploit them, challenging warriors to single combat in situations where accepting meant certain death and refusing meant eternal shame. Entire fleets paralyzed themselves following impossible honor obligations that humans had carefully crafted. "You call yourselves warriors," her broadcast taunted, "but you hide behind your ships like frightened children. Face us in honest battle, if you have any courage left." The Corvins, bred for thousands of years to value honor above survival, couldn't resist such challenges. They abandoned tactical advantages to meet humans in fair fights that were actually elaborate traps. Their greatest strength became their fatal weakness. Against the Veiled Confederation, Dr. Han Jaiwan used a different approach. She fed false information to their psychic seers, creating fake visions of cosmic events that never happened. The Veil, who believed the universe spoke to them through meditation, began making strategic decisions based on completely fabricated prophecies. "The cosmic flow reveals great victory," reported Seer Limdara to the Veil War Council, not knowing her visions had been artificially implanted by human technology. "We must move our fleets to the Andromeda Nebula to achieve harmony." The Veil fleet arrived at the nebula to find human forces waiting in ambush. Their spiritual leaders had guided them directly into a trap, while believing they were following divine wisdom. The Nexus Collective proved the most challenging to deceive because their computer minds processed information logically. General Bei Minjay solved this problem by introducing complete chaos into their calculations. Human actions became deliberately random, making decisions by flipping coins or rolling dice. Current human strategy probability, error, reported Nexus Node Prime 7 as its algorithms crashed trying to analyze a battle where human commanders had literally drawn tactical plans out of a hat, unable to compute decision matrix for random variables. The Nexus computers, designed to predict every possible outcome, couldn't handle opponents who made choices with no logical reasoning. Their greatest advantage became useless against enemies who refused to think rationally. As the war escalated, humanity revealed capabilities that shouldn't exist. Their primitive artificial intelligence somehow outperformed advanced alien computers through what programmers called intuitive coding, software that worked despite violating every principle of logical design. "How is this possible?" demanded a Nexus technician, staring at human code that contained obvious contradictions yet functioned perfectly. "It's not supposed to work," admitted the human prisoner they were interrogating. But sometimes the best solutions come from not thinking too hard about why something works. The final phase began when Admiral Yoon Tae-hyun made a decision that terrified every alien strategist in the galaxy. Instead of attacking homeworlds or military bases, human forces moved toward the galactic core itself. "They're targeting the relay network," reported a panicked Veil Seer. "If they control the hyperspace communication system, they control everything." The ancient relay network was the foundation of galactic civilization. It enabled faster-than-light communication across thousands of star systems. Without it, interstellar empires would collapse into isolated worlds within days. Human engineers swarmed the relay stations with orders that made no sense to alien observers. Don't destroy anything. Just make it ours. Within hours, every civilized world in the galaxy received the same message simultaneously. The impossible had happened. Humanity had seized control of the most critical infrastructure in known space using technology that was supposedly centuries behind their enemies. The galaxy's throat was now in human hands, and everyone finally understood the truth. The peace talks hadn't failed. They had been humanity's final intelligence-gathering mission before conquest. The message arrived on every civilized world at exactly the same moment, transmitted through the hyperspace relay network that humanity now controlled. Admiral Yoon Tae-hyun's calm voice echoed across thousands of star systems, reaching every alien home in the galaxy simultaneously. This is humanity speaking to all galactic civilizations. We have 4 simple terms for peace, and these terms cannot be changed or negotiated. On the Corvin homeworld, General Fact Moore stood in his command center, watching the impossible happen. No species in galactic history had ever seized control of the relay network. It was supposed to be impossible to hack, protected by security systems built by dozens of different alien races over thousands of years. First, the human voice continued, all fighting between alien powers must stop immediately. The war that has lasted 100 years ends today. The Veil Confederation's leadership gathered on their crystal homeworld, their translucent forms flickering with shock and rage. Speaker Limthra tried to reach out with her psychic abilities to disrupt the transmission, but the human signal was being broadcast through purely technological means that her mental powers couldn't touch. Second, Admiral Yoon Tae-hyun's voice went on, full payment must be made for the murder of our diplomats Dr. Choi Dae-ho and translator Kong Nari. We will decide what form this payment takes. The Nexus Collective's billion interconnected minds process this information at quantum speeds, calculating thousands of possible responses. Every scenario they ran ended the same way. Refusal meant isolation, and isolation meant death for civilizations that depended on interstellar trade and communication. Third, humanity is now the galaxy's peacekeeping authority. Any future conflicts between alien species will be resolved by human arbitrators using human methods. The 4th term was the most shocking of all. Fourth, this new order begins immediately. Any world or government that refuses these terms will be cut off from all galactic communication and trade. You have 1 standard hour to decide. The transmission ended, leaving trillions of beings across the galaxy in stunned silence. The species they had dismissed as weak children was now dictating terms to civilizations that had ruled space for millennia. General Thakmore roared his fury, smashing furniture in his command center. This is impossible. How dare these inferior creatures threaten the Corvin Empire? We will never surrender to mammals who cannot even fight with honor. His defiance lasted exactly 37 minutes. At that point, human controllers demonstrated their power over the relay network by cutting all communication to and from Corvin space. Within minutes, the Empire's military coordination collapsed. Fleet commanders couldn't contact their ships. Planetary governors lost touch with their capitals. The vast interstellar government that had dominated a quarter of the galaxy suddenly became thousands of isolated worlds with no way to work together. The Corvin Empire's economy, built on trade between hundreds of star systems, began dying immediately. Without communication, merchant ships couldn't find buyers. Military vessels couldn't receive orders. The proud warriors who had never surrendered to any enemy watched their civilization crumble in real time. Restore our communications. General Thakmore begged through emergency transmitters, his pride forgotten in the face of complete societal collapse. The Veil Confederation tried to resist using their psychic abilities, attempting to maintain mental contact between their scattered worlds. But human jammers, built from modified Veil technology, created interference that made their telepathic networks impossible to use. Seers who tried to push through the jamming suffered severe mental damage. The cosmic flow has been poisoned, Speaker Limthra whispered, her form dim with exhaustion. We cannot reach our people across the stars. The Nexus Collective attempted to calculate a way around human control, running millions of scenarios through their quantum computers. Every solution required resources or coordination that depended on the relay network. They were trapped by their own success, too dependent on galactic infrastructure to survive without it. One by one, the alien powers submitted to human terms. The Corvin Empire signed first, their warrior pride broken by watching their people suffer in isolation. The Veil Confederation surrendered next, their cosmic consciousness shattered by the realization that humans could disrupt forces they considered divine. The Nexus Collective was last, their algorithms finally accepting the mathematical certainty that resistance was impossible. Ambassador Lee Miho, now bearing the title of Galactic Arbitrator, addressed the reformed Galactic Council from the same chambers where peace talks had failed 9 months earlier. The room looked identical to before, but everything had changed. Every alien delegate sat in fearful silence as Lee Miho spoke in the same gentle, diplomatic tone he had used during the original negotiations. He talked about cooperative peace and mutual prosperity and working together for the good of all species. His words were exactly what they had been before, but now everyone understood the steel beneath humanity's polite exterior. The species that had seemed weakest was actually the most dangerous. Not because they were stronger or more advanced, but because they could think in ways that no other intelligence could predict or counter. They had studied galactic civilization, not to join it as equals, but to understand how to control it completely. The 3 great powers that had fought for a century now worked together under human supervision. Disputes were settled by human arbitrators who made decisions based on mysterious human logic that somehow always worked. Trade flowed smoothly along routes protected by human peacekeepers. The galaxy prospered under human management. The war was over. Humanity had won not by being better warriors, but by being better thinkers. They had solved the problem of galactic conflict by making themselves indispensable to everyone else's survival. Peace had come to the stars at last, enforced by the most terrifying force the galaxy had ever encountered. Human problem-solving applied without moral limitations. The universe would never be the same.